a man who married 4 women and killed 2 of them. In this story, we dive into the mysterious disappearance of Stacy Peterson, a case that has shocked and baffled many. What seemed like an ordinary life took a dark turn, leading to a web of secrets, lies, and a relentless search for answers. As we unfold the chilling details of Stacy's disappearance and the investigation that followed, you'll see how a once respected man's life unraveled in the face of suspicion and tragedy. Stick with us as we explore the twists and turns of this haunting case. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on more unsettling stories like this. Drew Peterson grew up in Bolingbrook, a suburban town near Chicago, Illinois. After completing high school, he enlisted in the United States Army, where he gained valuable experience and discipline. In 1977, Drew transitioned into law enforcement, joining the Bolingbrook Police Department. His career began with a series of assignments across various units, including the Metro Area Narcotics Squad, where he quickly distinguished himself. Just a year after joining, Drew's dedication and sharp instincts earned him the prestigious Police Officer of the Year award in 1978. He was described as an officer deeply committed to his role, thriving in the camaraderie of the police force. As Drew progressed in his career, he rose to the rank of sergeant, solidifying his reputation within the department. His colleagues often referred to him as a cop's cop, someone who epitomized the essence of law enforcement. Beyond his professional accolades, Drew's life revolved around his passion for serving and protecting the community. In 2007, after a 30-year career, he retired at the age of 53, leaving behind a legacy of professional success and a comfortable pension of approximately $80,000 annually. Despite his accomplishments in uniform, Drew's personal life painted a more complex picture, marked by a series of turbulent relationships and failed marriages. Drew's first foray into marriage came in 1974 when he married his high school sweetheart, Carol Brown. The couple had 2 sons, Stephen and Eric, but their relationship unraveled after 6 years. Carol discovered Drew's infidelity, which led to their divorce in 1980. Despite the end of their marriage, Drew quickly moved on and found himself embarking on another chapter of his personal life. Meanwhile, Kathleen began to hear whispers about her husband's affair with a teenager. The rumors became impossible to ignore when she received an anonymous letter mocking her and revealing Drew's relationship with Stacy. Shocked and humiliated, Kathleen confronted Drew, only for him to confirm the affair without hesitation. Their 9-year marriage, which had already been strained, began unraveling rapidly. After the confrontation, Drew moved out of the family home, leaving Kathleen and their 2 sons behind. In a brazen move, he had Stacy move into his new residence, located just a few blocks from Kathleen's house. Shortly after Stacy moved in, she discovered she was pregnant. This prompted Drew to push forward with finalizing his divorce from Kathleen. However, Kathleen was not willing to settle the matter without addressing financial arrangements. She agreed to divorce Drew on the condition that they would resolve these financial terms later. By October 7, 2003, their divorce was finalized. Drew wasted no time moving on. Only 2 weeks later, on October 23rd, he married Stacy in a small private ceremony, signaling the start of a new chapter in his life. Drew appeared to relish his new marriage, frequently flaunting his young wife in front of Kathleen, seemingly to highlight his upgrade. This only exacerbated tensions between the two. Between 2002 and 2004, their volatile relationship continued to deteriorate, resulting in numerous confrontations. Police were frequently called to Kathleen's residence to mediate disputes, primarily concerning custody and visitation rights for their sons, Thomas and Christopher. The escalating animosity between Drew and Kathleen left a toxic atmosphere that loomed over their family. In the early months of 2004, the situation took a tragic turn. On March 1st, 2004, Kathleen Savia was found dead in her home. Her lifeless body was discovered in the bathtub of the master bathroom. The scene initially appeared to suggest an accidental drowning, but the circumstances surrounding her death would soon raise questions. Kathleen's death marked a dark and chilling moment in Drew Peterson's story, casting a shadow over his seemingly charmed life with Stacy. While Drew and Stacy moved forward as a newlywed couple, Kathleen's untimely death left an enduring mark on those who knew her. The events surrounding her passing, combined with the tumultuous dynamics between Drew and his ex-wife, set the stage for a narrative far more complicated and sinister than anyone could have anticipated. The circumstances surrounding Kathleen Savio's death raised many questions, but they were dismissed at the time. Despite the suspicious nature of her passing, most notably the absence of water in the bathtub where she was found, a coroner's jury ruled her death an accidental drowning. This decision was heavily influenced by the testimony of a police officer who vouched for Drew Peterson's character, portraying him as a trustworthy and caring individual who would never harm Kathleen. The case was quickly closed, leaving Kathleen's family with lingering doubts and unanswered questions. Following Kathleen's death, Drew Peterson's life seemed to move forward seamlessly. He and Stacy Peterson welcomed another child, and Stacy stepped into the demanding role of caring for not only her own children, but also Drew's sons from his marriage to Kathleen. By all appearances, the young mother was devoted to her family. However, beneath the surface, tensions were brewing in the Peterson household. These tensions would come to light in 2007 when Stacy mysteriously vanished on Sunday, October 28th. On the day of her disappearance, Stacy had planned to help her brother paint a new apartment in Joliet, Illinois. When she failed to show up, her family grew concerned. Stacy was known for being dependable and always kept her phone with her, so her lack of communication was immediately alarming. Her brother tried repeatedly to contact her but received no response. By the end of the day, with no word from Stacy, her family reported her missing to the Illinois State Police, triggering an investigation into her sudden disappearance. Detectives quickly turned their attention to Drew Peterson, as he was the last person known to have seen Stacy. During questioning, Drew stated that Stacy had woken him early on the morning of October 28th, saying she was leaving to help her brother with his painting project. According to Drew, he went back to sleep and was later awakened by his children. That evening, Drew claimed he received a phone call from Stacy at around 9 p.m. She allegedly told him she had left him for another man and that she had abandoned her car at the airport. Drew's account raised eyebrows, particularly given the timing and unusual nature of Stacy's supposed actions. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Drew alleged that Stacy had been struggling emotionally. He attributed her distress to the death of her sister, who had succumbed to cancer earlier that year. According to Drew, Stacy's grief had taken a toll on her mental health and her behavior had become increasingly erratic. He suggested that these changes in her demeanor were evidence of deeper personal struggles. While Drew painted a picture of a woman on the edge, Stacy's family and friends refuted his claims. They described her as a loving mother and a strong-willed individual who would never abandon her children. Her disappearance cast a shadow over Drew's carefully constructed narrative, leading investigators to dig deeper into his past, Kathleen Savio's death, and the events surrounding Stacy's vanishing. The case quickly escalated, capturing national attention and casting suspicion on Drew Peterson's role in both tragedies. Drew Peterson's account of Stacy's disappearance quickly raised doubts among her family and friends. They found it implausible that she would leave her young children behind to start a new life with another man. Stacy had always been a devoted mother, and the idea of her abandoning her family was unimaginable to those who knew her best. They attributed any emotional distress she may have been experiencing to the recent death of her sister, not to any form of mental instability. This deepened the suspicion that something more sinister had occurred. As detectives delved deeper into Stacy's disappearance, the case became more complex. Despite their efforts to follow every lead, no definitive answers emerged. Stacy's loved ones clung to the hope that she would reappear, bringing an end to their anguish. Meanwhile, Drew Peterson took a leave of absence from the Bolingbrook Police Department, eventually opting for early retirement. This decision allowed him to collect his full pension, which remained intact despite the ongoing investigation and public scrutiny surrounding his involvement in Stacy's case. In the early stages of the investigation, rumors and conflicting stories swirled around Drew and Stacy's relationship. Drew maintained his innocence throughout, consistently denying any role in her disappearance. He presented himself as a concerned husband and father, navigating the public's growing suspicions with a calm and calculated demeanor. However, Stacy's family and friends remained unconvinced, driven by their unwavering belief that she would never willingly leave her children or her life behind. The community rallied behind Stacy's family, organizing search efforts and distributing flyers across the region. Vigils were held, and volunteers combed through fields, ponds, and wooded areas in the hope of uncovering any clue that could lead to Stacy's whereabouts. Despite these exhaustive efforts, no evidence surfaced to indicate what had happened to her. Law enforcement conducted searches of Drew's home, brought in cadaver dogs, and executed search warrants on nearby properties, but their efforts yielded no conclusive results. While Stacy's loved ones and the community continued their desperate search, Drew seized opportunities to share his side of the story with the media. He appeared on national platforms like Good Morning America, urging Stacy to come forward if she was out there. In an interview with Larry King, Drew portrayed himself as a devoted father, claiming he had taken on both parental roles since Stacy's disappearance. He referred to himself as the mom to his children, attempting to present a picture of resilience and dedication amid the crisis. Despite Drew's public assertions, his media appearances only added to the controversy surrounding him. The stark contrast between his calm demeanor and Stacy's unexplained disappearance left many uneasy. As suspicions grew, the focus on Drew intensified, with Stacy's family and friends steadfast in their belief that answers lay with him. The mystery of what happened to Stacy remained unsolved, but her disappearance became a rallying cry for justice among those who loved her. Drew Peterson crafted a narrative of victimhood, claiming he was being unfairly targeted by both the media and law enforcement. He portrayed himself as a man unjustly accused, maintaining that the investigators were overreaching in their efforts to implicate him. His public appearances revealed an air of arrogance and entitlement, giving the impression that he considered himself untouchable. However, the facade began to crumble 2 months after Stacy Peterson's disappearance, when authorities publicly named Drew as the prime suspect in the case. This announcement sent shockwaves through the community. Drew had long been viewed as a respected police officer and an upstanding member of society. The revelation of his suspected involvement in Stacy's disappearance tarnished his once admired reputation. To further complicate matters, investigators also announced they were reopening the case of Kathleen Savio, Drew's third wife, who had died under suspicious circumstances years earlier. Her case, initially ruled as an accidental drowning, was now under scrutiny. On November 13, 2007, Illinois officials exhumed Kathleen's body for a more thorough examination. The timing of this decision intensified public interest in the case, especially as Drew made media appearances to defend himself. Speaking on the Today Show the day after the exhumation, Drew adamantly denied any wrongdoing in either Stacy's disappearance or Kathleen's death. Despite mounting evidence, he insisted on his innocence and expressed disbelief that Kathleen's case was being reconsidered as a possible homicide. As the investigation progressed, unsettling details about Drew's past began to emerge. Kathleen's family revealed to investigators that Drew had made chilling threats against her during their marriage. He allegedly warned Kathleen that he could kill her and stage it to look like an accident, all to avoid splitting his pension during their divorce. This revelation painted a grim picture of Drew's capabilities and provided a disturbing motive for both Kathleen's death and Stacy's disappearance. The re-examination of Kathleen's body by a medical examiner delivered a damning verdict. Her cause of death was not accidental, but homicide. This contradicted the original findings and strengthened suspicions against Drew. The announcement that Kathleen had been murdered was a pivotal moment in the case, putting Drew under even greater scrutiny. Nevertheless, Drew publicly expressed shock, maintaining that he had always believed Kathleen's death was a tragic accident and had nothing to do with foul play. Adding to the growing allegations, Drew's second wife, Vicki Connolly, came forward with her own harrowing account. She claimed that during their decade-long marriage, Drew had threatened her life on multiple occasions. Vicki alleged that Drew had warned her he could kill her and make it look like an accident, echoing the threats made against Kathleen. These revelations, combined with the findings from the reopened investigation, cast Drew in an increasingly sinister light and deepened the suspicions surrounding his involvement in both women's fates. Vicki Connolly revealed harrowing details of her time with Drew Peterson, alleging that he had physically abused her throughout their marriage. These claims were further supported by Vicki's daughter, who had lived with Drew until she was 17. According to her, Drew's controlling and abusive behavior was a persistent issue in their household. Meanwhile, investigators uncovered that Stacy Peterson had also been contemplating ending her marriage to Drew. Friends and family shared that Drew frequently belittled Stacy, accusing her of not being attractive enough for him. Under the pressure of Drew's constant criticisms, Stacy took drastic steps to improve her appearance. She underwent multiple cosmetic procedures, including breast augmentation, LASIK eye surgery, a tummy tuck, and braces, all in an effort to meet Drew's lofty and often degrading expectations. Despite her attempts to please him, Drew's attitude toward her grew increasingly resentful and possessive. Instead of alleviating his dissatisfaction, Stacy's efforts only seemed to exacerbate the tension in their marriage. Drew's controlling nature extended far beyond Stacy's physical appearance. He was plagued by jealousy and mistrust, often accusing Stacy of infidelity. His paranoia drove him to monitor her closely, including accompanying her to the gym under the pretense of ensuring her safety. These actions reflected Drew's obsessive need to control Stacy's interactions and whereabouts, reinforcing the toxic dynamics in their relationship. Despite this possessiveness, Drew reportedly maintained extramarital relationships during his marriage to Stacy, further highlighting the hypocrisy in his behavior. A breakthrough in the investigation came when Drew's stepbrother, Thomas Murphy, provided disturbing testimony. Thomas claimed that shortly after Stacy's disappearance, Drew had enlisted his help to move a large blue barrel into Drew's SUV. He described the barrel as warm to the touch and noted Drew's urgency during the incident. Drew then reportedly transported the barrel to an undisclosed location, leaving its contents and final destination a chilling mystery. Thomas's account was corroborated by Drew's friend Rick Mims, who admitted that he and Drew had purchased 3 55-gallon blue plastic barrels from their employer in 2003. Rick even provided investigators with photos of the barrels, which matched Thomas's description. These revelations raised new suspicions about Drew's involvement in Stacy's disappearance. However, Drew's attorney quickly sought to discredit Thomas's testimony, pointing to his history of substance abuse and alleging that the two were not close at the time of Stacy's disappearance. Stacy's sister, Cassandra Kales, remained determined to seek justice. She strongly advocated for Drew to take a polygraph test to address his alleged role in Stacy's vanishing. However, Drew's attorney declined the request, further fueling public suspicion. Despite the mounting evidence and witness statements, Drew continued to deny any wrongdoing, maintaining his innocence as investigators worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind Stacy's mysterious disappearance. The decision by Drew Peterson's attorney to block him from taking a polygraph test only deepened public suspicion about his potential involvement in Stacy Peterson's disappearance. As time went on and Stacy remained missing, Drew's behavior became increasingly egotistical and brazen. In a move that baffled many, Drew hired a publicist to manage his public image, turning the tragedy into a spectacle. His growing arrogance was evident as he continued to court media attention, seemingly thriving on the notoriety that surrounded him. In December 2008, more than a year after Stacy's disappearance, Drew announced his engagement to 24-year-old Christina Rains, who would have been his fifth wife. Their relationship quickly drew criticism due to its unconventional nature. Christina, undeterred by the controversy surrounding Drew, publicly professed her love for him during multiple television interviews. In one such appearance on The Today Show, Christina defended Drew, claiming he was innocent of any wrongdoing regarding Kathleen Savio's death and Stacy's disappearance. She described their relationship as loving and authentic, dismissing any concerns about his legal troubles. Despite Christina's public declarations of love, the engagement was short-lived. Their breakup fueled allegations that the relationship was nothing more than a publicity stunt orchestrated to keep Drew in the spotlight. Christina later admitted that their engagement lacked sincerity, confessing that she viewed it as a way to gain media attention. The fallout from their relationship exposed Drew's manipulative tendencies and underscored his willingness to exploit others for personal gain. As Drew's personal life unraveled, law enforcement made significant progress in their investigation. On May 7, 2009, a grand jury indicted Drew Peterson on charges of first-degree murder in the death of Kathleen Savio, his third wife. Police arrested him shortly thereafter, and his bail was set at an extraordinary $20 million. Despite facing such grave accusations, Drew remained unrepentant. He joked about his arrest and continued to display a cavalier attitude, further alienating the public. Drew assembled a high-profile defense team, which he dubbed the Dream Team, to fight the charges against him. The defense team worked tirelessly to challenge the prosecution's evidence, but public interest in the case remained intense. In 2012, Drew finally went to trial for Kathleen's murder. Prosecutors argued that Drew had killed Kathleen and staged her death to look like an accidental drowning in the bathtub. They pointed to a pattern of threats and controlling behavior as evidence of his culpability. Throughout the trial, Drew maintained his innocence, but the prosecution painted a damning picture of his character. They portrayed him as a manipulative and dangerous man who stopped at nothing to maintain control over the women in his life. The trial marked a pivotal moment in the long and tragic saga of Drew Peterson, leaving the public to await the verdict on whether he would finally be held accountable for Kathleen's death. Kathleen Savio's death raised significant suspicion due to its timing, occurring during contentious divorce proceedings in which Kathleen was poised to receive half of Drew Peterson's pension. Prosecutors argued that this financial pressure provided Drew with a strong motive to commit murder. They presented evidence emphasizing the timing and context of Kathleen's death, suggesting that Drew's actions were driven by a desire to retain control over his assets and avoid losing a significant portion of his income. A pivotal moment in the trial came when hearsay testimony was admitted under exceptional circumstances. Typically inadmissible in court, these statements were allowed due to the unique nature of the case. A pastor who had counseled both Drew and Stacy Peterson during their marriage testified about a chilling conversation he had with Stacy shortly before her disappearance. During that meeting, Stacy confided that Drew had come home the weekend Kathleen died wearing all black and immediately began washing women's clothing. Stacy reportedly went on to tell the pastor that Drew had confessed to murdering Kathleen. According to Stacy's account, Drew struck Kathleen in the head with a police baton before staging her body in the bathtub to make it appear as though she had accidentally drowned. Stacy also revealed that Drew instructed her to lie to the police during their investigation. The pastor's testimony, based on Stacy's disclosure, became a critical piece of evidence in the prosecution's case against Drew. The judge ruled that Stacy's statements to the pastor were an exception to the hearsay rule, allowing the jury to hear this damning evidence. Combined with other facts surrounding Kathleen's death, the testimony painted a grim picture of Drew's actions and character. Ultimately, the jury found Drew Peterson guilty of Kathleen's murder, and he was sentenced to 38 years in prison. This conviction marked a significant. As Drew's personal life unraveled, law enforcement made significant progress in their investigation. On May 7, 2009, a grand jury indicted Drew Peterson on charges of first-degree murder in the death of Kathleen Savio, his third wife. Police arrested him shortly thereafter, and his bail was set at an extraordinary $20 million. Despite facing such grave accusations, Drew remained unrepentant. He joked about his arrest and continued to display a cavalier attitude, further alienating the public. Drew assembled a high-profile defense team, which he dubbed the Dream Team, to fight the charges against him. The defense team worked tirelessly to challenge the prosecution's evidence, but public interest in the case remained intense. In 2012, Drew finally went to trial for Kathleen's murder. Prosecutors argued that Drew had killed Kathleen and staged her death to look like an accidental drowning in the bathtub. They pointed to a pattern of threats and controlling behavior as evidence of his culpability. Throughout the trial, Drew maintained his innocence, but the prosecution painted a damning picture of his character. They portrayed him as a manipulative and dangerous man who stopped at nothing to maintain control over the women in his life. The trial marked a pivotal moment in the long and tragic saga of Drew Peterson, leaving the public to await the verdict on whether he would finally be held accountable for Kathleen's death. Kathleen Savio's death raised significant suspicion due to its timing, occurring during contentious divorce proceedings in which Kathleen was poised to receive half of Drew Peterson's pension. Prosecutors argued that this financial pressure provided Drew with a strong motive to commit murder. They presented evidence emphasizing the timing and context of Kathleen's death, suggesting that Drew's actions were driven by a desire to retain control over his assets and avoid losing a significant portion of his income. A pivotal moment in the trial came when hearsay testimony was admitted under exceptional circumstances. Typically inadmissible in court, these statements were allowed due to the unique nature of the case. A pastor who had counseled both Drew and Stacy Peterson during their marriage testified about a chilling conversation he had with Stacy shortly before her disappearance. During that meeting, Stacy confided that Drew had come home the weekend Kathleen died wearing all black and immediately began washing women's clothing. Stacy reportedly went on to tell the pastor that Drew had confessed to murdering Kathleen. According to Stacy's account, Drew struck Kathleen in the head with a police baton before staging her body in the bathtub to make it. Drew Peterson's conviction for Kathleen Savio's murder marked a dramatic fall from grace, and he placed the blame squarely on Jim Glasgow, the prosecutor who led the case against him. In Drew's mind, Glasgow was the architect of his downfall, and he seized every opportunity to voice his grievances. Following his conviction, Drew's lucrative police pension was suspended, leaving him without one of his last remaining sources of financial stability. While incarcerated at Menard Correctional Center in southern Illinois, Drew launched multiple appeals, but none were successful. The appellate court upheld his conviction, cementing his fate behind bars. During his time in prison, Drew's bitterness and anger escalated, culminating in a shocking plot. Authorities discovered that Drew had conspired to have Jim Glasgow murdered, He allegedly offered $10,000 to a fellow inmate to carry out the killing. The inmate, however, reported Drew's plan to his attorney, who promptly informed the police. Acting swiftly, law enforcement equipped the inmate with a wire to record conversations with Drew. The recorded evidence led to Drew being charged with solicitation to commit murder for hire. The solicitation charge resulted in a second trial, and Drew was sentenced to an additional 40 years in prison. This new sentence all but guaranteed that Drew would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The case highlighted Drew's inability to accept accountability for his actions as he continued to lash out at those he blamed for his predicament. Meanwhile, the disappearance of Stacy Peterson remained unresolved, leaving her family and friends desperate for answers. Drew, still the prime suspect, has steadfastly denied any involvement in Stacy's disappearance, maintaining his innocence even as evidence and public opinion suggest otherwise. Despite Drew's silence, Stacy's family remains determined to find justice. Her sister Cassandra has been a vocal advocate, tirelessly working to keep Stacy's case in the public eye. The family hopes that one day Drew will reveal the truth about Stacy's fate and disclose the location of her remains. However, one of Drew's older sons expressed doubt, suggesting that his father is more interested in preserving his self-image as a victim. According to him, Drew would rather go to his grave maintaining his innocence than admit guilt. In May 2022, a surprising twist emerged involving Drew's former defense attorney, Joel Brodsky. Brodsky hinted that he might release confidential information from his time representing Drew, potentially shedding light on the mysteries surrounding Stacy's disappearance. This revelation sparked heated debate among legal experts and the public. While some see Brodsky's potential disclosure as a step toward justice, others argue it could set a dangerous precedent for violating attorney-client privilege. Cassandra Peterson, while frustrated by the lack of progress in Stacy's case, has mixed feelings about Brodsky's statements. She expressed concern that any legal consequences faced by Brodsky could delay or complicate the search for answers. For Stacy's family, the ultimate goal remains unchanged: uncovering the truth about her disappearance and holding Drew fully accountable for the harm he caused. As the legal and ethical debates continue, Stacy's loved ones hold on to hope that one day the silence surrounding her case will finally be broken. Cassandra Peterson, Stacy's determined sister, has made it clear that she will stand by Joel Brodsky if he chooses to disclose any information he may know about Stacy's disappearance. Despite a continuing gag order that prevents Brodsky from sharing confidential details about his client, Drew Peterson, Cassandra believes that any potential revelation could be crucial for finding Stacy. While it's uncertain whether Brodsky has specific knowledge about Stacy's whereabouts, he has claimed to know details about both of Drew's deceased wives. This has sparked interest as he has expressed regret that Drew has yet to take responsibility for Stacy's disappearance. Joel Brodsky, speaking publicly, has hinted that he might reveal what happened to Stacy, including the location of her body. However, his potential decision raises legal and ethical concerns. Attorney-client privilege exists to protect the confidentiality of communication between a lawyer and their client, and breaching this could result in serious consequences. Drew Peterson, despite being convicted for the murder of his former wife, Kathleen Savio, continues to maintain his innocence regarding Stacy. Any disclosure by Brodsky could potentially expose him to legal ramifications for violating the trust placed in him as Peterson's defense attorney. Cassandra, however, remains unwavering in her pursuit of justice for her sister. While many years have passed since Stacy's disappearance, she continues to search for the truth and a final resting place for her sibling. Recently, Cassandra embarked on a new mission, investing in advanced technology to aid in the search for Stacy. Utilizing a remote-operated vehicle equipped with sonar technology, the case of Stacy Peterson serves as a stark reminder of the devastating effects of manipulation and control in relationships, and how far some individuals will go to protect their own secrets. Stacy's disappearance, shrouded in mystery and suspicion, leaves behind questions that may never be fully answered. It highlights the importance of listening to loved ones, standing up for what's right, and never letting anyone's manipulation go unchecked. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories like this to light. Stay curious, stay cautious, and we'll see you in the next video.